Hey, in this video, I'm going to take you through all the tips and tricks I know to help you get your wood stabilized the best you can. And if you're still here at the end, I'll show you an example of an improper or partial stabilization that I did versus a good one. And don't forget the joke of the day. There's three main things we need to do. First thing we need to do is we need to get rid of all of the moisture. We need the wood dry. The second thing we need to do is we need to replace the air inside the wood with resin. And the third thing we need to do is cure that resin. Okay, so here's what we need to get started. So we're going to stabilize this pine cone and this piece of burl for some future projects. Now the first step I do is I cut down my piece of wood to the size that I need. So that's going to go in there. Now the reason for this is the smaller it is, the easier it is to extract the moisture and the easier it is to infuse it with resin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a weight on our work pieces. As these lose moisture, they're going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. And so when they stop losing weight, we know that we have all of the moisture extracted. These weights are in ounces, and the scale I'm using measures to the nearest 1,000th. Alright, so here we are at the toaster oven. Now this one's a little bit bigger than the one I started with. It's nice to have a little bit of extra room around the heating elements. It makes me a little less nervous about doing this. I'm sure this raises some concerns with some people, putting wood inside of an oven. Now a couple things. I'm running it at about 250 for the temperature. We want it warm enough where water will evaporate and become vapor, but we don't want to be running it so hot that we're going to toast the stuff. Throughout the drying process, I periodically pull the pieces out and check the weights. They lose a substantial amount in the first few hours. The loss slowly diminishes as they finish. It took a few hours for the pine cone and took 9 hours for our piece of burl wood. Once the pieces are dry, I immediately triple bag them to keep them from absorbing moisture from the atmosphere. Alright, so we've got our wood triple bagged in here. Now we have to allow this to cool before we put it into the cactus juice. This is heat activated. If we took the hot wood straight from the oven and threw it in the cactus juice, it would seal around the outside and cure without penetrating into it. So we need to let this cool for a few hours. Once our wood is cooled to room temperature, we can pull it from our bags and go straight to the resin. The wood needs to remain fully submerged through our next step. I use this mesh screen, which allows air to escape through it, and weight it down with some scrap steel. Okay, so here's our cactus juice with our two pieces submerged in there underneath the basket and the weights. Now we're going to take that, we're going to put that inside that vacuum chamber, which is attached over here to our vacuum pump. Now the whole purpose of this is we're going to draw an absolute vacuum, I guess not an absolute vacuum, but the best vacuum we can on that piece of wood, and that's going to pull the air out of it. When we can't get any more air out and the bubbles stop forming, we're going to release the vacuum, and that's going to draw the cactus juice from around the wood into the fibers, and that's how we get it infused. All right, so we are at full vacuum and the bubbles have stopped forming. We can't get any more bubbles out. So now we're going to release the vacuum and we're going to infuse the wood with the resin. And we're going to do this slowly when we let the air in. If you do this fast, you're going to blow cactus juice all over the place. Okay, so that whole process took about 15 hours. You want to get absolutely everything out. Now as we pull this stuff out, if something floats, we are not there. We might have to run the vacuum again and go back through the process. But nothing should float. Now per the directions, you're supposed to wait 2 times as long as it took you to pull the vacuum. So we ran a vacuum for 15 hours. So you would wait 30 hours before trying this. Now I just let it sit there for a week because I do this ahead of time and I didn't need it. The longer you let it sit and soak, the better it will come out. And everything is definitely sinking. There's nothing in there that wants to float, so we're good. So all we need to do now is just kind of loosely crumple these up and put them in the oven. And so it says to cure it at 200 degrees for 2 to 3 hours. All right, so it's been about 3 hours. And just like that, the biscuits are done. All right, so here they are, unwrapped out of the foil. These are no longer just a pine cone and a burl. These are now composites. So you can see you'll get this stuff kind of stuck on the bottom, but most of it kind of dries up and has the same appearance it had. You can tell there's a difference in weight. That's it. These are all ready for the projects we're going to make. They're no longer subject to humidity or atmosphere, moisture, none of that. So now I got a little experiment I want to try. So we've got the pine cone that we infuse with resin, and then we've got just a normal pine cone. This is how this guy started. And you can kind of see a difference in them just with how the petals are poking out. Petals? Do you call them petals? If it was a flower, those would be petals. So these ones are kind of laying down a little bit. Now, the drier a pine cone gets, the farther out those go. When you get a pine cone absolutely wet, it closes. So let's try something out. Just got some water here. Let's see what happens when we put these in. So first off, that one's sunk straight off the bat like a rock. And see this one? That one won't sink. So now let's pull those out. I'm going to set these down there, and then let's do a little time lapse. All right, so there you go. There's the proof. That thing drank that water in. See, nothing even leaked out. This one, it all repelled off. So I've got 2 sets of knife handle scales here that I've made out of pine cones. And you can't see any difference in them right now. But if I turn them this way, I bet you can, right? That's the difference between not being patient and being patient. Give all these processes the time they need, and you will get better results. All right, I hope that helps somebody out there get better wood stabilization. This process is working great for me. With that, joke of the day. What do you get when you cross human DNA with goat DNA? You get kicked out of the petting zoo. Oh, too soon? Too much?